BeMe, 2019. Find drain tunnel near friend's house. Try to explore, get in maybe 100 feet before it's pitch black. Go to friend's house. Hey bro, want to come explore this cool drain with me? Sorry, Anon, I'm scared by this kind of thing. You can have my headlamp though. Thanks bro, see ya. Return to tunnel, sun is setting. Head inside, observing surroundings. The deeper into the tunnel, the older the graffiti on the walls. Mostly from the 70s and having to do with weed and sex. My face when boomers got high and f***ed where I'm standing. Try to ignore that fact and keep moving. Walk for 10 more minutes. Long f***ing tunnel.png. Notice walls have been barren for the past 3 minutes. Keep walking. More graffiti comes into view. It looks pretty creepy. Probably tagged by some edgy kids 30 years ago to scare people. Don't think too much of it. Been walking for 30 minutes now. Should probably head back. Walk back. Get to a wall. The wall is blocking what would have been the entrance/exit. Made of concrete. Looks like it's been there for decades. No possible way I could have made a wrong turn. It's all one tube. Trapped in the tunnel. Have to head back down to find a way out. Son of a bitch.jpg. Turn around. Start walking. Walk until the occult symbols start again. Hear something behind me. Pick related. Hear multiple appendages/legs splashing around. Clear, light breathing coming from it. Take picture because I had my phone out trying to get service. It blinks after I take the picture. Lurches forward. Do a 180 and make tracks. Sprint for a good 10 minutes. Muscles dying, lungs burning, throat dry as the Sahara. Eventually see outlet. Sweetfreedom.mov. Escape the tunnel. Collapse into a puddle of stagnant water and tadpoles. Walk to friend's house, cold, wet, and tired. Never go back. Hot damn, boy, that thing looks spooky as hell. Parents die in a car wreck. A week or so later, I'm lying in bed, crying myself to sleep as usual. Hear a creak on the floor outside my room, and giggling. My dog perks up and starts growling like crazy. My mom slowly leans around the corner of the door. She looks different, and her movements are all wrong, jerky and twitchy. Go to sleep, Anon. It'll all be better soon. It's her voice, but it sounds clotted somehow. My blood is ice water. My dog is whimpering and cowering now. Mom jerks back around the door. Another creak. My dad leans around the corner. It's okay, son. We're gonna be a family again soon. Just fall asleep. And giggles. Like my mom, his movements are spastic and f***ed up. His face is a grinning rictus. I don't know what that means. He jerks his head back out of sight. My heart is pounding. Quickly and quietly as I can, I grab my phone and dial 911 to report a home invasion at my address. I can hear movement and that insane giggling from the hallway. I'm laying there with tears rolling down my face from fear. I don't know how long it was until I saw flashing lights outside the house and muffled shouts. Hurried movement in the hallway. Something crashes to the ground. Muffled shouts from downstairs as the cops come through the front door. Thank you, God. They search my house, and afterward a cop approaches me, white as a sheet. Anon, it's hard to tell you this, but we found your parents' faces on the ground outside. That was almost 10 years ago. They never found the sick fucks that did it, and I still have nightmares. Unexplained event from when I was 13. Staying in this very small town with Dad. He was working there temporarily. One day, we're exploring the downtown area. It's just a handful of streets. It's a nice sunny day, but there are hardly any signs of life. Place is almost deserted. Feels like the Twilight Zone. Anyway, Dad is in some shop buying a tie, and I'm bored, so I tell him I'm going outside. Between that tie shop and the next building was this narrow alley with a dumpster inside. I notice legs poking out from behind the dumpster. Think it's a hobo. But notice there are nice brown shoes on the guy's feet, and he seems to be wearing clean gray slacks. No way a hobo would wear that. My next thought is, oh cool, it's a dead body. Go over to peek behind the dumpster, expecting to see a guy stabbed to death or something, but I just see a guy who seems to be sleeping. His head is turned and resting on the dumpster like he's asleep, but I see his eyes are open. Instantly I realize that the face doesn't look right. It looks basically like pick related, like a dummy's face. At first I think I'm looking at a life-sized ventriloquist dummy. This thing was bigger than me, like a grown man's size. Its face looks like solid wood. I could tell it was wood because even in the alley the sun was really bright. But then I noticed its hands. They look regular, like a real man's hands. Skin, fingernails, a little hair. I think, WTF, and look at the face again. The blank dummy eyes shift towards me. Fuck. I nope out of the alley and run right into my dad. He asks what I was doing in there. Nothing, I say, and ask if we can leave. That's it. The only explanation I could think of was that it was a man wearing a mask, but the way the guy's head was leaning against the dumpster, I could see his jaw and neck, and I didn't see any seams or anything, and the eyes moved. Be my father, 16 to 17 years old, living in rural town in Castilla, Spain. One of his friends recently found a cave, and he wants to go explore it. Dad accepts. They arrive at the entrance. The entrance is rather big, but afterwards the tunnel turns smaller and they have to crouch to continue. After some walking, the tunnel starts gradually increasing in size again and they can walk straight again. They walk for like 10 minutes, just a tunnel that goes deeper and deeper into the earth. My dad starts feeling weird vibes. Something is not normal. Says nothing to his friend and they keep walking. Eventually they reach a cave. In one corner they see a man just lying on the ground. Hello? No response. They get a bit closer. He's sleeping. The man is unnaturally pale, like milk white. His hair is long enough to reach his knees. At first they thought it was a hobo. What's with everybody thinking everything is a hobo? But he was wearing white clothes, and he looks like he has good hygiene, and the man also has lots of gold jewelry on him. The man starts awakening and stands up. He's like 3.5 meters tall, around 12 feet for Americans, most likely more. He says something in a language they don't understand. He doesn't seem hostile, but my dad and his friends still freak out and rush for the exit. The man laughs as if he found it funny. Both my dad and his friends spend the rest of the day and the entire next day thinking about it. After that, they decide to go back. The entrance is no longer there. Looks like there never was any cave there. They talk with the locals about it, and no one's ever heard of any cave in that location. Little brother is really into astronomy. He's about 7 years old. Likes to look at the stars and watch things. About 3 weeks ago, he spent literally the entire night looking at one part of space from his room. Never once moved. Didn't even eat. I mean, I don't know how many people eat overnight. When he gets up about noon the next day, I asked him what he was looking at. I was looking at the screaming stars. What are you talking about, you little brat? There's a place I found where, if you look at it, you can hear screaming. No way. I'll prove it to you. Wait until about 11 at night. Telescope hasn't moved since the other night. Look into it. Hear very faint screams. Eventually gets louder. Have to look away. I noped out and told our mom that she should take away his telescope. I'm never going to look at the stars again. I personally disagree, but whatever. Here's mine. Be me, 8 or 9, lying in bed, not sleeping like a boss. Start to get this really weird feeling that I need to look outside. Ignore it, try to play that game with my hands where you pretend they're alligator monsters. Fun for a little while, but that feeling is really strong. Eventually say fuck it and get out of bed to go look out the window. We live in a pretty heavily forested part of town, so all I see is a bunch of pine trees. Must be a strong wind. One tree in particular is getting beat to shit. Get a weird feeling about it, and then it hits me. It's the only tree moving. Looks like it's having a seizure. It was really unnatural. It felt like it was an artifact glitch. Suddenly the tree literally fucking flies into the sky and vanishes. I tactically shit myself and run back to bed and stay under the covers until dawn. It sounds goofy, but just imagine how pants-shittingly terrifying this was to see in person. This might be a bit out there, but hear me out because I have some stories to tell. I'm a New England anon. Lived in and around small-town New Hampshire/Maine for most of my life. I have a friend who moved out to an even more remote small town up in the sticks of New Hampshire, and I've driven out there to see him. The only good way to get there is to go through the small town of Hillsborough, which requires hopping on the very obscure Route 149 that goes from Ware, New Hampshire, up into and through Hillsborough. For those unfamiliar with the area, all of you I reckon, this isn't really a highway like an interstate. Hell, it isn't even much like other routes. That area of southern New Hampshire is surprisingly hilly and wild. The route wraps around sharp inclines and passes by various swamps and dark woods. The woods of New England are usually thick right at the sides of the road, but when driving this route at night, the only times I have, it's obnoxious how upon you the woods become. I recall having an aunt from West Texas who proclaimed, "How the hell do any of you drive anywhere? The wilderness is right next to you." Anyway, I've only driven the route a handful of times, and always exclusively at night between the hours of 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. The route itself also passes by like 3 graveyards, and the area itself is usually laden with heavy fog. It's genuinely disturbing if you allow yourself to be sucked into the ambience. I drive a lot for my job, and for some reason, this road has always filled me with dread and anxiety, and that was before anything weird has happened on it. I'll detail 2 of my experiences in greentext form, and I'll try to keep them brief. One of them happened literally the other night, and I've been meaning to make this thread because it inspired me so much. I haven't encountered anything supremely paranormal, so this sticks out. I guess most of you probably can't relate, but if you have any other creepy highway or road stories, then post them up. First story. BeMe, about a year ago. First time driving up to my buddy's house. Following Google Maps, about an hour and a half drive. It's around 7:30 p.m., freshly dark. Load up some music and start driving. First thing that surprises me is how secluded these roads are. This can't surely be the fastest way to my buddy's house. Follow the road as best I can, otherwise get there without incident. Have a good time with my friend's family and chat about the drive up. He agrees that it's definitely a trek. I blew a tire on the drive once, was stuck out there for an hour waiting for AAA, right in the middle of the woods, next to a swamp. Pretty creepy, man. Tell him that I wasn't looking forward to the drive back, but that I'll manage. Don't drink or do drugs or anything due to the unpredictability of the road. When it's time to leave, about 2 a.m. or so, I decide to lean into my fear. What is wrong with you? I load up one of those creepy stories YouTube videos that's like 3 hours long. The drive isn't nearly 3 hours, so that should keep me awake. Get a coffee and chug it at a 24-hour convenience store and start the drive back down. The video works great. Random stories about skinwalkers and ghosts and spooky shit. I'm pretty tired too, so I keep swearing I'm seeing stuff in the corners of my headlights, enjoying myself despite being creeped out. Keep driving. Get pretty into some of the stories. Some other ones I tune out and think about other stuff. Pull over to take a piss in the woods. Nothing creepy happens. Eventually the video cuts out whilst I'm driving. Check my phone to see if I lost internet connection. The video is over. It was at least 3 hours long, like 3 hours and 19 minutes or something. Look at the time, and it's after 5 in the morning. I had been driving for the entire duration of the video. Check the Google Maps, and it says I'm still a half hour out from my destination. I lost like 2 hours of time that night. No explanation why. Second story. Happened just the other night. Drive up to Buddy's house. This time I stay cognitive the entire time due to my previous experience with Route 149. It was a cooler night, really foggy too. Once again, the drive-up was uneventful, besides a weird amount of roadkill and passing cars with one headlight out. I've learned my lesson, and during the drive down, around 11 p.m. this time, I stick to pop country radio stations instead of spooky shit. Once I hit Route 149, I didn't see a single other car. On every other road, downtown Hillsborough, Route 77, and then later on Route 3, there were a good deal of drivers. Route 149 was a dead zone. Very eerie. Whilst driving, I'm racing down the hills to get home as fast as possible. All the roadkill got me worried about passing animals. A common concern of my area. It can kill you. Eventually hit a sharp left turn that twists around and down a hill, going pretty damn fast. Once I hit the bottom, there's several figures in the road, like 4 to 5 deer right in the middle of the road. They're all gathered around and all look directly at me as I go down the hill. Hit the brakes a few dozen yards in front of them, and my truck screeches to a halt. They're all very fucking dirty, like it looked like they had been rolling in the mud. None of them moved for a good few seconds. I'm genuinely frozen. I knew something was wrong. Just then, at the side of the road, I see something emerge. It's just another deer, but it was on its hind legs. I couldn't tell if it was leaning against a tree or just standing. It was also dirty, but also covered in thick shades of brown and maroon. Maybe blood, or maybe it had red fur, I don't know. Its eyes weren't black, they were pure white, like cue balls, staring right at me from the tree line at the edge of my headlight's glow. It was tall as fuck, overshadowed my truck. Think Skinwalker, and floored out of there. The deer dispersed as I take off towards them. Drive home fast as fuck. Fuck Route 49. Bad vibes. Also, I'll point out that the town of Hillsborough is generally a little off. It's not too distinct when you're there, but it seems to have a seedier underbelly. It doesn't seem too different from any other small New England town, but it actually is far more sinister. It has one of the highest crime rates per capita of any New Hampshire community. This is including the generally secluded and impoverished northern part of the state. For some reason, Hillsborough brings out the worst in its community. It's cursed, I swear. That little explanation reminded me of Riften from Skyrim for some reason. Hey X, I don't visit often, but I have this memory that I want to share with you guys that has been vexing me since I was little. I'm willing to answer as many questions as possible. I will tell my 2 stories in green text. BeMe. I was around 7 or 9 years old at the time. I was with my parents in their room watching TV at the time. At the time. Dad tells me to go get water for him. I am at the 2nd floor of the house. Kitchen is in the 1st floor. Be little and have a fear of the dark, as most kids do. Decide to nut up and go on my mission to get water for my dad. Go down the stairs and start to feel something is off. I take a look around and there's nothing unusual or out of place. Think I'm just being scared for no reason and proceed to go down the stairs and finish the mission. I reach the bottom of the stairs and turn the lights on in the dining room. I turn to look at the direction of the living room. I then notice a head peeking from the top of the couch, staring at me. This thing, whatever it is, has a massive pale white head with a slimy texture to it, and what looks like veins popping out all over its head. Its eyes are red and large, like some sort of gray alien, but the difference besides the color was the white veins running to the center of the eye and to the white dot pupils it had. After like 3 seconds of us awkwardly staring at each other, it recedes back into the couch. I then book it back to my parents' room in utter disbelief. As I was walking up the stairs, I was dreading to see the creature behind the couch, but of course it was not there. I tell my dad about what I saw, and he of course does not believe me. Dad blows me off as scared and gets the water himself. Pic related, made this on MS Paint. Second encounter. Be me, 16 to 17 years old. Moved to a different house. Be late at night. I am in my room, laying in my bed, on my PSP, browsing 4chan. Yes, that's right, on my PSP. Anyways, I have my closet open. Closet is filled with clothes hanging and my dresser is in it. No room for anyone to fit or be in there without making a shit ton of noise if someone decides to move in there. My bed is in the corner of the room, and I was facing the rest of the room, and the closet is in front of where I'm facing. Decide to look up from the screen of my PSP, and I see my white-headed, red-eyed visitor again. I WTF internally. We stare at each other again for like 2 seconds, and then it retreats back into the closet. I realize something after the creature retreats. I was not afraid this time. Besides the initial surprise, I didn't feel fear. I then remember the first time I saw this thing when I was younger and felt afraid. Don't know what was so different this time. I then decide to take advantage of this feeling of lack of fear and decide to investigate the closet. Nothing there, of course. Feel courage and then decide to fall asleep. Be today, 27 years old. Haven't seen this creature since. Any ideas? Be 25. Living alone in a kinda shitty house in a bad neighborhood because I can't afford anything better and I won't live with roommates. Wake up close to 4 a.m. Hear a woman screaming outside. Look out window. See nothing. Screaming quiets. Hear the faint sound of wood scraping against pavement. Think maybe some girl is getting out there. Grab a golf club I keep in my room for protection and a flashlight. Go outside. Anybody out here? Walk around backyard. See nothing. Still hear faint noise of wood scraping. Walk back to front yard. See something in the shadows near my neighbor's patio. Shine my light on it. WTF? It's a nude black woman's torso with freakishly long arms facing away from me. Long dirty hair, about 4 feet tall. Look down. Her lower body is some kind of flat-bottomed wooden thing, like she has a boat for legs. She turns her head towards me. Her eyes are empty sockets. She has no nose. Run the fuck back inside! Hear her scream at me, ear-rippingly shrill. Call the cops. Tell them there's a crazy woman outside my neighbor's house. Leave out the part about her having boat thing for legs. Dispatcher man tells the cops we'll be there to investigate. They never show up because bad part of town and they have better things to do. Stay up all night with golf club in hand, wishing I owned a gun. Hear wooden scraping for about an hour. Stops close to dawn. Ask neighbor about it the next day. He gets really anxious and sweaty. Denies knowing what I'm talking about. There was no way he didn't see it. I think maybe he saw it too, but was so freaked out he doesn't want to believe it. Boat for legs? Like, I don't even think that would be scary. Like, you see someone with just a torso and they drag themselves across the ground, but they're a boat? Like, how is that even scary, dude? All this shit started when I found that little note. On a square piece of paper I found at the bottom of a box I was moving out of my basement, it read, "Hello? Please respond." I had no idea how long the paper had been in there. Those boxes had sat in my basement since I moved in. I ignored it until the next morning, when I opened my coffee maker to throw out the grounds, and inside was a sopping wet piece of paper that read, "Please respond. Please help." I figured it must have been put inside my coffee maker by whoever was pulling this pointless prank, because it wasn't there when I put my coffee grounds in. I found more notes. Under my mouse pad, inside my computer tower while I was putting in some new RAM, between the layers of tissue of my toilet paper roll, under my DVD player's disc tray, places that no one would ever look, places you'd never think of putting a note, places you knew no one would ever look and it would be foolish to put a note because who knew when they would see it? But it kept happening, and they all said the same thing every time, begging me to respond and help them. Being the silly goose I am, one day I just got fed up with when I found a note inside of a cup in my dishwasher right after I had run it. The paper was dry. I wrote on the back of it, "Hello, I'm responding. Please explain your situation," and slid it under a crack in my bath-fitted tub. What? My bath-fitted tub. No sooner had I left my bathroom did I find another piece of paper floating on the surface tension on the surface of my glass of Sprite I had in the living room. Dude, you could have just said floating in the glass of Sprite. Like, what? I carefully picked it out of my drink. It read, "Thank you," and in larger letters, "I'm trapped." I waved it around to dry it off a bit and wrote on the back of it again, "Where are you trapped? How are you sending me notes?" And not creative enough to think of where to put it, I just threw it behind my couch. I waited and looked, but I didn't see any other notes for the rest of the day. The next day I checked my mail. Inside of some spam letter was the next note. "In the second dimension. Below you." I wasted no time in responding, "Whoever you are, this prank is stupid. Give it a rest," and threw it outside. The wind blew it away. The next note I got was still in obnoxious capital letters, though it was much longer than before, and the last sentence seemed to have been squeezed into the remaining space. I think it was a passage from some encyclopedia or textbook. The first dimension is a defined point in space. The second dimension, this was underlined, is anything that exists with height and width, while the third adds length. The fourth includes time, and the fifth is the past, time that has already occurred and is solidified in time-space. Everything beyond that was too squished in to read. I rolled my eyes and responded again. "How can you read this if you're in the second dimension? How can you even exist?" I slipped this note into the space in my toaster between the element and the metal casing. My reply came when I brushed it out of my hair the next morning before I took a shower. Writing is 2D, vision is 2D, two 2D images superimposed. That didn't really get to the point of how I was supposed to rescue this person, which I defined in my next note that I flushed down my toilet. "Make me 3D" was all that was on the new slip of paper I found inside of a chocolate bar I unwrapped later on. How the idiot was putting these inside sealed products was beyond me, but at this point I decided to play along. Maybe it was some kind of TV show thing. "How?" was all I wrote for my reply. I remember exactly where I put it, because it was the last thing I wrote for a long time. I put it in a crack between my length mirror and its wooden backing. As soon as I let go, it slid out of sight and I didn't see any papers again for a year and a half. Getting dressed one morning for work, I went into my room and adjusted my tie and shirt in my mirror, the same one, only it was now on the opposite side of my room. Looking into it, I noticed a square behind me on the wall. Turning around, there was none. In the instant before I turned around again, I thought it must have fallen off, but in the mirror it was still there, still stuck to the wall. I touched my mirror thinking it was some sort of warping or optical illusion, but it wasn't. I lifted my heavy mirror up from the ground and slowly walked backwards with it, nearing myself to the opposite wall on which the paper was stuck. The closer I got, the clearer the message on it became, until I stopped. Sandwiched between the heavy mirror and the wall, looking at the paper, immediately over my shoulder, "Make you 2D, it said. I moved the fuck out of that house as soon as I could. After bunking at my girlfriend's for a while, I got the fuck rid of the mirror, the toaster, everything. My heart still skips a beat when I see any perfectly square piece of paper sitting on the floor all alone. I still live in fear of someday I'll open a book or look in the lining of a jacket and a piece of paper will flop out. I check all my things now, constantly. I also don't drink coffee anymore." That's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed some of these classic 4chan stories. I'm having a great time reading these, and I've got so many more. I think I'm going to bring these back for a weekly Saturday series again, because it's so much fun. I hope you guys enjoy them, because I really just have fun reading them. And I'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching.